Let's speak now to Anurag Viswanath, a China analyst at the Institute of Chinese Studies. She joins us from Bhubaneswar in India. It's good to have you on the program with us. Now, how significant is China's control over processing and refining compared to its role in mining, and why does that give Beijing more leverage over the United States and allies?
Well, if you look at the issue more holistically, the um, the warfare in modern times has changed. It's no longer conventional warfare with deployment of troops and the Air Force and the Navy, but now warfare is economic warfare, where countries deploy trade sanctions, export controls, or export ban, and this is exactly what China is doing. In fact, it has borrowed from the American playbook itself, and using this as a leverage. Of course, China is trying to position it as trying to make the trade more sustainable, trying to make it more, trying to stabilize the global market. But the U.S. and Europe sees it very differently, sees it as a very hostile move, sees it as China holding the world captive. And China, of course, has monopoly over this, which is how it's impacting the entire global supply chain of the chip industry. And the chip industry is extremely critical and crucial because be it your smartphone or the television or electric vehicles or missiles or aircrafts, the chips are needed in all these industries. So what China is doing is trying to use this as a leverage, and of course the message that China is sending is also very important. It is trying to send a message to its domestic audience, and it's also trying to send a message to the global audience. The message that it's trying to send to the global audience is very clear: that China can say no, and China is a strong power. And what it's saying to the domestic audience is, as it has been with Xi Jinping, who came to power in 2012, the line has been that China stood up under Mao. It became rich under Deng Xiaoping, but it's strong under Xi Jinping. So that is a very clear-cut message that China is a strong power, and it is definitely going to stoke nationalistic sentiments, unify the country in a very cohesive manner.
Right, and with temporary export licenses close to expiring, how real is the risk of renewed disruption? And do you think companies are preparing for the possibility that this truce could potentially break down?
Well, Japan and China had a fallout. This was way back in 2010, and Japan prepared. It prepared by diversifying its market. It prepared by looking out for an alternative. It actually went to an Australian miner. And so Japan is in a good position. It's still dependent on China, but it has diversified its supply chain. But in case of America, it's still wholly dependent on China. So it's going to take a few years for the US to not be dependent on China. And why China is doing this is also very well known. It's doing this largely because of the sanctions that have been slapped against China now and then.
Right, and US companies are still getting finished magnets, but not raw materials. What does that mean in practical terms for costs, investment decisions, and efforts to build supply chains at home?
It's going to take a little while to build a supply chain. So whether it's Vietnam or India or even Australia, it's going to take a few years to look out for some kind of alternative. In fact, the big news is that Japan has already started mining in the seabed. But that also is going to take a few years. In fact, Japan was also doing some mining in the US, but they've closed largely because of the costs. So it's not just about mining, but also the costs involved, and a very steady supply chain. So in a world of globalization, there is integration, there is dependence. And China is saying that, well, countries have to work together because that is the norm of globalization. There will be friction, there will be dependence, but countries do have to collaborate and cooperate and manage their differences.
Anurag Viswanath from the Institute of Chinese Studies, thank you very much for your analysis.
Thank you.